Good morning, conference. Before we start, I've just been asked to do a few quick housekeeping rules. The fire exits are here, here, and behind me here. Also, if there is a fire alarm, please do make your way out to the right of the building where the garden is, and you will be instructed as to what to do next. And also, the Rainbow Greens meeting is taking place at 1:30 p.m. in room 6, just to let you know before I forget. So welcome to conference, and welcome to our fine city of Glasgow. Welcome to all our new members and all familiar faces. I hope that this weekend, all our fantastic speakers, events, and debates will help to inspire and challenge you, as well as help you get to know each other. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christy Mearns, and I recently had the pleasure of being elected last year as a young Green to take on the political baton from the inimitable Green councillor, Nina Baker, and to represent this very busy city centre ward. I also had the opportunity of working alongside 4 fantastic new councillors, Councillors Long, Molyneux, Wisley and Young, as well as 2 stellar existing ones, Councillors Bartos and Wardrop. Not only have we increased our number of councillors in Glasgow thanks to the tireless dedication and work of you all here, we have done so at an extremely interesting time. Almost half of all councillors elected last year were new, many of them young, and after almost 40 years of uninterrupted rule, Labour finally lost their monopoly on power. The SNP took on a minority administration, which means that for us, uniquely, despite being the smallest party on the council, we hold the balance of power. The administration would rather seek our support than that of Labour or the Tories, which means that we've been able to punch well above our weight in shaping decisions, such as on a low emission zone, on extra additional support needs teachers, and on a bike for every child. I'm delighted to be here today in the ward I represent, once the medieval heart of Glasgow. Just round the corner, you'll find the oldest house in Glasgow, the Provin's Lordship, as well as Glasgow Cathedral and the necropolis up further, to name just a few. We're also in the heart of Glasgow's vibrant learning district, a world leader in teaching and research, and it's home to more than 22,000 students from over 100 countries around the world. The buzz of students from so many places choosing to make Glasgow their home reminds us how much richer Glasgow is as a result of this diversity. Glasgow has a proud history of solidarity with people and movements around the world. Just a few days ago marked the 25-year anniversary since the late great Nelson Mandela visited Glasgow to receive his award of Freeman of the City. Glasgow was the first city in the world to award him this honour when he was still a prisoner, and it was ordinary Glaswegians taking a stand against the brutal apartheid regime in South Africa and in the countless demonstrations in George Square and elsewhere that brought about this radical move by Glasgow City Council in 1981. I'm proud that Glasgow renamed a street in his name to commemorate this. Strathclyde Students' Union, too, showed its solidarity by electing him as an honorary member of the Students' Association. And nearby Glasgow Caledonian was the first university in the world to award him an honorary degree. It's the stories of solidarity like this that has helped us become the outward-looking, welcoming place we know today. A city that truly does justify our very well-rehearsed slogan, "People make Glasgow." More recently, Green councillors have been proud to stand with the people of Glasgow against the modern-day brutality of Westminster and its hostile environment policy for refugees and asylum seekers. Glasgow is the only dispersal city in Scotland, and we host 3 times more asylum seekers than in any UK local authority outside London. And so we refuse to accept this policy as a problem reserved to Westminster, while it impacts so deeply and so many of our new citizens. We must campaign for immigration to be devolved to Holyrood. But in the meantime, there is much we can do and have been doing. This summer, Kim Long led a campaign, backed by many of you here, to prevent the deportation of her local constituent Duke, which she'll be talking more about later. I worked with the administration to protect an emergency night shelter from closing in my ward, which would have left many asylum seekers even more vulnerable than they already are. And as a councillor group, alongside Patrick Harvey and the amazing network of local organisations, we've opposed the disgraceful planned lock changes by Serco. This helped to bring about the very first asylum task force in Glasgow, which we'll be pushing to strengthen in the months ahead. This all feels particularly significant as it's Black History Month. The fantastic programme of events put on by the Coalition for Racial Equality and Rights and others such as the Strathclyde Students' Union too, reminds us that it was also slavery that made Glasgow. Glasgow has been praised for leading the way on Black History Month in Scotland and also for its role in the abolition movement. However, it's still shockingly little known the extent to which Glasgow was built on slavery and on the oppression of so many people of colour without whom our city could not have flourished like it did. However, since the new intake of councillors, it does feel like progress is finally being made. Glasgow elected its first ever Black councillors, and the launch of Black History Month was for the first time held in Glasgow City Chambers, hosted by our new Lord Provost and the first EU national to become Glasgow's first citizen. The Council has also supported calls from the Coalition for Racial Equality and Rights to create a museum of colonialism, slavery and empire, and Greens enthusiastically supported this. We were delighted to get the SNP administration's very welcome support on record at a recent full council meeting. This won't be a quick journey, nor an easy one, but it's a step we must take as a city. Signs of Glasgow's history are evident all around us, in many of our statues, street names and buildings alluding to plantations and wealthy traders. Even in our most celebrated style mile, Buchanan Street, named after a former tobacco merchant and Lord Provost, Andrew Buchanan. For too long, we've ducked this difficult issue of how to deal with this, but there are exciting signs of change. Just 2 weeks ago, Glasgow University, originally the old college located just up the road on High Street, paid homage to the abolitionist James McEwen Smith. Smith was born into slavery and became the first African American to receive a medical degree in 1837 and here in Glasgow. To recognise his story, their new learning and teaching hub will be named after him. Where Duke Street meets High Street, you'll also find a wonderful local eatery, the McEwen Smith Cafe. I'd highly recommend trying one of their enlightened sandwiches, not just because they taste great, but because they represent other important Scottish figures, such as Dorothy Rowntree from Glasgow, the first woman to receive an engineering degree. My predecessor, former engineer Dr. Nina Baker, will appreciate me mentioning this. And it's also worth mentioning that the owner of McEwen Smith has told me that without Nina and her battles with landlord City Property, their cafe wouldn't be open today. McEwen Smith's legacy, much like Glasgow's most historically significant street, the High Street, has until now also been largely overlooked. As Glasgow was expanding rapidly west into the wealthy merchant city as a result of profits from slavery, High Street was left behind. Much of it demolished, the university rebuilt in the West End, and a motorway built right through the very origins of medieval Glasgow by St Mungo's Cathedral. Over the last few years, I've seen with absolute horror small businesses struggling up and down High Street, and the most historic street in our city quiet but for the sound of traffic. Yet there's investment happening all around the city, the buzzword of regeneration omnipresent, but not here despite years of historic neglect. Buildings at risk and a hugely missed opportunity for Glasgow and all our small businesses. However, the spirit of people here has not faded, and Glaswegians everywhere are taking a stand to ensure that poor decisions of the past aren't repeated. The administration seems now to finally be listening. Tireless campaigning of local businesses with the support of Green councillors has made this a priority, and a new High Street working group was set up to support a renewed vision for the area. Our pressure ensured that all neighbouring councillors would be included in this group, and after months of hard work and a consultation well attended by local businesses, it has now culminated in a unique action plan and strategy which will be announced in the coming weeks. For too long, we have fought against an ever-increasing tide of speculative planning applications, hell-bent on profiteering from neighbouring regeneration and inflated land values. Along with many Glaswegians, I have made my opposition heard. Proposals to demolish what's left of our built heritage, to make way for luxury student accommodation. One of them was stopped in its tracks. A B-listed building on Argyle Street, and it is now going to be restored into homes, despite the original developer saying that it was beyond repair. Another of these proposals would have spelled the end for the old college bar. This wonderfully Glasgow institution looks now, though, like it might be saved within a new proposal coming forward. And in my role as Vice Chair of the Neighbourhoods, Housing and Public Realm Committee, I've been able to make this a planning policy priority too. I've instructed evidence sessions to be carried out so that any new policy fully considers the valid concerns that have been raised about this type of luxury student developments. And this is being organised as we speak. I've made sure that for every developer invited, there is representation for local residents, students, and heritage groups too. These are just some of the examples of the difference that just 7 Green councillors can make. And there's so much more that I haven't mentioned. Imagine what we could do with more of us. We look forward to working towards just this in the months and years ahead. Please join us in making radical history in Glasgow once again. Thank you.